Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Good. We did some revisions this morning, and let's hope this works out well and everybody can hear everybody quite well. Okay, before I get started, the Village of Anmore would like to open our meeting by recognizing the many Indigenous people of our area, including the following First Nations with communities that are now located in the region that we now know as Metro Vancouver: Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Coquitlam. Further, we'd like to honor the important place in history occupied by the many tutorial keepers of these lands and waters around us since time immemorial. So, I'd like to call to order the regular council meeting of Tuesday, October the 1st at 7 o'clock. Could I get someone to move the recommendation that the agenda be approved as circulated? Moved? Seconded? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. I just want to check in the audience. Can people hear? Good? Good. Okay. Progress. Public input. Anybody would like to provide any public input on any item on tonight's agenda? No. Okay. We have no delegations. We have the minutes of the regular council meeting held on September 10th, 2024. Could I get someone to move the recommendation of those minutes? Moved. Seconded. Any discussion? See none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Is there any business arising from those minutes? No? Moving right along. We have a consent agenda. Any council member who wishes to remove an item for further discussion may do so at this time. We only have one item on the consent agenda, and I would be removing it. So with that, we have a letter from the Village of Belcarra dated September 26, 2024 regarding the Saskatchewan Volunteer Fire Department service review is attached. So I guess we're just moving to receive. Yeah. So I just wanted to give a bit of an update. So on this last Friday, this past Friday, September the 27th, the first review happened, and it was held at Metro Vancouver, and it was between myself, Mayor Ross from Belcarra, Chair Hurley of Metro Vancouver, Ravi China, Dorothy, and Brant. I'm not sure Brant's last name. He runs the entity as the Saskatchewan Volunteer Fire Department for Metro Vancouver. After much discussion, it was come up that the review, which is going to be paid for and was at the request of Belcarra, so it's going to be paid 100% from Belcarra, they would like these three things reviewed in the review, and that would be the geographical size of the two communities, the population of the two communities, and the assessed value of all land and improvements of the two communities. Belcarra would like the capital expenses to be in the same formula as operating, which is currently close to 80%. This review will take approximately 60 days, and we'll be reconvening our meeting within 60 days to when they do these three analysis and that. So that's all I have to say, but I just wanted to just bring everybody up to speed. So those were the only things that came out of the meeting. The meeting lasted about 20 minutes. So on that, I'll move receipt. So is that second? Any discussion? See none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Now move on to new business. Remaining 2024 annual events. Ms. Elrick.
Thank you. So at the last regular council meeting, there was some interest.
We're not hearing you quite as well. If you could maybe pull it just a little closer.
So at the last regular council meeting, there was some interest from council on exploring whether the village would like to bring back fireworks event to the village. It's been several years since we've had the fireworks. And then, of course, we have our light display and light up Spirit Park event would be the other remaining event for the balance of the year. So staff just wanted to report back to council and seek direction in terms of the fireworks. So we do have overall budget for special events allocated in one sort of pot of money. So in terms of the fireworks, we did reach out to find out what the cost of the fireworks would be. The cost of the actual fireworks is at around $3,000, and that would be for the same amount and quality of fireworks that we've had in the past in the village. That is a discounted rate. I will.
Yeah, Mark through his company, Mark Obaniski, at 60% off, he told me.
Right, okay, that's good to know. And then Mark Obadinsky has offered to provide his services in terms of setting the fireworks off at no charge to the village. And then there would be some small incremental costs for staff and hot chocolate refreshments and that type of thing. So that would come out of the overall budget. So should council want to move ahead with that event and reinvigorate it this year. Additionally, we have the Light Up event, which, for the past couple of years, due to COVID and then due to the construction at the hub, we've either canceled or altered. So in terms of the lights, we do have now plugs on the roof of this building. So there is an opportunity to do perimeter lights or some type of, snowflakes or other type of light display around the building. So staff just wanted to get a sense from council on what types of lights that you envision. And in conjunction with the event, noting that we're still working on sort of the overall development of the Spirit Park area, whether council would want to see a full light display in the park this year, or more of a focus on one tree or group of trees and then a perimeter lighting. The Public Works crew just needs to get planning on that and, make sure that we have the proper lights before the snow season, dare I say, arrives. So happy to get any feedback from council on that.
Just with Halloween, I did talk to Mark about this, and he said that if we are going to act, we need to act quickly. So, because they do sell out, believe it or not. And then we'd also want to ensure that Ravenswood Drive was blocked off again to local traffic. Last year it wasn't, and it was not great as I walked up and down there. I can tell you that when I was at the adult bingo, which I think it was attended by about 100 people, I was asking people, especially from your neighborhood and a lot of the people that I knew, and while some were concerned about the challenge with pets and stuff like that, they said whether we do it or not, it's still going to happen. And they said what they liked about it is it kind of put an end to the night with fireworks. So crowds would kind of come here, trick-or-treating, 8 o'clock the fireworks go off, and then everybody has hot chocolate, then everybody goes home, and there's not that subsequent kind of fireworks going off all over the village and that. So it did make some sense to me. I do recognize that some people are pretty, concerned about it and stuff like that, but I certainly, and again, this year Halloween is on a Thursday. So I think if we could just get a consensus on Halloween and then we'll go on to Christmas would be great. So let's just talk about Halloween then right now. Councillor Trowbridge.
Yeah, I think, we don't have that many things in the village, and I think that, like you said, it is a fitting close. I know when my brother lived here on Ravenswood, they get 300-400 kids on occasion, and they always enjoyed the fact that when we started, it ended for them. Not that they don't like kids, but enough was enough. So I think that's a really solid point by the community, and plus, I think it's exciting for people, and it's traditional for us. So until it becomes something that we can't do, I think we should do it.
Okay. Councillor Cryer.
Thank you. I do feel for the critters, but to someone's point, they're going to go off anyway around the neighborhood. So we may as well do an organized event, and people love it. It's a great evening. Strolling down Ravenswood is just such a perfect thing for the village that I do think we should still do it, unless the rest of the crew feels no, but I do think it's a great event and we should stick with it. We don't have a lot of opportunities.
Councillor Webering.
Yeah, I agree. Everybody seems to really like it. I like the fact that there is an end to trick-or-treating. I know our neighborhood is probably 300 kids. And I do believe that there's going to be more random fireworks all over the village, which is going to upset pets, and you can't plan for that. A lot of people are going to say, well, if I can go take my kids to the village display, why would I go buy my own? So it kind of makes sense for that reason. So I'm in favor.
Okay. Another, Councillor Richardson.
Yeah, I'm going to be the one outlier here. I've looked up a bunch of municipalities and they're all canceling them, even for individual use on Halloween, which Anmore still allows. I like the idea that maybe it'll kill some of the ones that blow up around the neighborhoods. I'm not sure that it will. I get the value of a community event, but I think this thing is phasing out over time in the next 5 years anyway. So I'm okay with it. I don't love it. If I had to make a vote that counted, I'd say no. But, you know, let's have an event.
Okay, so I'll call for a motion for the budget for Halloween. I'm thinking it's going to be, if it's $3,000 for the fireworks, it's probably another $500. I think it's for hot chocolate and cookies type thing we normally give out, so.
Yeah, so through the mayor, there is existing special events budget that we could allocate that has already been approved. But should council wish to, you know, keep that budget just for the light up event and approve additional budget, certainly staff would take that direction.
So so I'll just put a motion forward for council to approve the firework display on Halloween for a total cost of about $3,500, and also to make sure to block off Ravenswood Drive for local traffic. And we can do that earlier in the day as well, I know, before people start parking. It also, daylight savings doesn't go up until a week after as well, so it will be a little bit lighter, and that will have hot chocolate as well. So could I get someone to move that for the Halloween? Moved, seconded. Any further discussion? Councillor Webring.
Could I add block off Alder Way neighborhood too?
Yeah, sorry, through the mayor, that's what I was trying to ask. Would we still want barricades for Birchwind neighborhood as well?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
there's kids crawling all over the place. So
I'm just going to say, I think that's really important. I got a lot of complaints about Ravenswood parking at Montgomery Days and the disaster that was. So I think we have to give some recognition to our residents on big events.
We'll need to have it manned as well, because that was the problem a couple years ago. We didn't have anybody manning there, and then all of a sudden somebody just moved the barricades out of the way. So, and focus, I guess we should talk to the school about focusing some parking down at the school as well. So, okay, see no other comment, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Now let's talk about Christmas. So if that $3,500 is spent out of the budget, how much is left for Christmas?
I don't have that specific budget amount. I know that there was still some payments coming out related to Montgomery Day, so the budget wasn't showing completely up to date overall. But in speaking with Ms. Perrin, she did indicate that she feels that there's sufficient budget to go ahead with the event, you know, as envisioned in previous years. The extra boost, I guess, would be additional lights around the village hall, which I know there was some funding that was brought forward from last year related to that. So I don't think at this time that to go ahead as we have in years past, there would be any additional budget requirements.
I think it's important that we do something at Christmas this year. Last year, unfortunately, we weren't able to, just with the state of this building, but also how interesting it's going to be able to have an indoor facility. You know, and I know I certainly would really enjoy being able to look out and see the Christmas light up of all the trees out here, and that, you know, we spent considerable funds in regards to putting the infrastructure in, so there's outlets out there to be able to facilitate that. So I'm certainly in favor of that. I will leave it up to, Sabina Perrin in regards to, the horse-drawn carriage, which is always incredibly popular. Any other events that the committee would want to do, but amazing to have this facility. Normally we have Santa freezing out in the gazebo. Here we can, you know, it's going to be really different. And I think it would be great to be able to have the community come here and celebrate some Christmas cheer and know that they're not going to get wet and it's going to be a warm event. So it could be really, I think it could be really something quite spectacular. So I'll open it up for any other comments. Councillor Trowbridge.
I'm a big fan of Christmas in general, so I think we should do it. I think we should do the park. I think we should do the exterior of the building, at least the front-facing portion, so that people can see it as they drive down the street. And to the mayor's comment about Cold Santa, I think we need to have this room available for everybody, and we probably should have a tree and some lights and make it festive in here so that families with little kids can come in and get warmed up and go to the bathroom and do the things they need to do. So I'm very much in favor, and I would not reduce it to a single tree or those kinds of things. And I know you mentioned that just to give us our breadth of options, but I would try and make it bigger and better than it ever has been.
I really agree with you with making this a festive area. Yeah. Sorry. Councillor Cryer.
Thank you. I also spoke with Ms. Perrin about it today, and we spoke about a big tree. This is a big room, or a cluster of trees, and I know that she had some ideas, but yes, we must light up Spirit Park and decorate the building. If we can do all 3 sides, 4 sides, I think that's important because people will come and see the park. Hopefully we can do a fire as well as activities in here, but we can, I guess, look at that closer. Yeah, but definitely looking forward.
Councillor Weber.
I agree. I would like to see this place look like Whoville. Okay. I want to go all out. I mean, don't exceed the budget, but certainly.
We've waited a long time.
We've waited a long time, and I think it's going to be an exciting, well-attended event. So I think we want to give people something to look forward to.
I'm also in favor. Love Christmas lights on trees, especially building, yes. The cost there is typically putting them up and taking them down. There are lights now that are LED multi-changeable. You could ring the building and leave them up year-round, and it could be a different color for every particular thing. So I don't know if there's budget for that, but they're reasonable priced. One of the things I liked about Ma Murray Days was the community involvement in like decorating a bike and pie eating and watermelon eating. No, it was cake eating. Is there any way we could have an event like create your own lit decoration and have a decoration or ornament type contest?
We usually get the kids involved to making Christmas ornaments for their trees. So they'll be, in the past, we haven't had the facility, but there has been an area to make crafts for ornament making for kids. And that we usually invite the school up to sing choir, the Christmas carols and stuff like that. It's, you know, if we get on it quick enough, and you know, I would really strongly suggest, council, if Polly, if you're in contact with Sabina, send your ideas to Polly and Sabina so that we don't miss anything. When the building was going up, I talked to Chris Boyd about those lights to be able to commemorate Orange Shirt Day, Anti-Bullying Day, all those things. Those lights are very expensive. They haven't come down yet in price. They're pretty expensive, but what I think it was David from Decalite said is what we could do is we could maybe put spotlights down below to shine on the building. Maybe we get different colors of that. You know, there is cost-effective ways to do some of this, but it's going to be just now that we just need to kind of get moving on it and stuff. And
But I like Councillor Richardson's idea of the kids' involvement.
Yeah.
I think
But just to be clear, I wasn't talking about the little kids. I was talking about us kids. Like we could have a council make an ornament contest or something. And with respect to Decalite is very expensive. Costco is very cheap. And I bought some for my house and it was only like $300. So multi-tone are changing year round outside. So, but okay.
Councillor, or Ms. Elrick, sorry.
Just to address Councillor Richardson's point of who is doing this work and who is putting up the lights. It is all of our public works crew. So I just wanted to, shout out to that crew because they're doing that in addition to other work that they are doing, and B, just recognize that the level of artistry and ability of what we can do as a small team does not quite reach the Lafarge Lake status yet. And additionally, of course, when there's snow and ice events, that the Public Works team does need to make sure that they have all of their efforts directed to that first and foremost, recognizing that they do a very good job and do try very hard to make sure that the lights remain on and all of those things. I just wanted to make sure that that was recognized as well.
Good. So from what I'm hearing from council, the resolution would be full bore ahead on the best Christmas event that we've had to date. No pressure. Could I get someone to second that? Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? A what? We're working on it. We're working on it. Yeah. Yeah. But, and to give Public Works a big shout out, they have been working with Decolite because Decolite is who all the municipalities get their lights for because they're commercial grade. We did have Costco lights here before when this all started, and they lasted a year or two, and it just wasn't financially viable. And I know that Decolite has taken some back that there was issues with and fixed them, replaced them at no cost. So they come up here and they will get a plan together with Public Works, and Public Works has done an absolutely amazing job over the years. They dry the lights out after they take them down, make sure they're all operating so that they're ready to go, and they actually spend quite a bit of time. They will, when we give the go-ahead, they actually usually get started right after Halloween on the dry days to be able to do that. So anyway, thank you, Council. I think it's great news. I'm really excited about it. We'll have to pick a date too as well when we're having it.
I think that the date we have right now is December 8th, which is the first Sunday in December.
Perfect, perfect. Oh, all those in favor? Carried unanimously, emphatically unanimously. Okay, we'll now move on to 11B, Anmore Community Hub Facility Rentals Update, a report dated September 27th, 2024 from our CAO. Ms. Elric.
Thank you. So this item has been before council a couple times last spring, and where we last left it is council endorsed a policy and enacted some charges under our fees and charges bylaw for facility rentals, and then asked for staff to just report back in the fall regarding how things are going and requests that have come in. So council did provide approval just for daytime events, and then one-off events that were going to happen after hours would be at the approval of council. So we have had the Scouts come in and request dates, and they successfully held their bingo night a couple of weeks ago and have another date saved beginning of November as well. So overall, since the hub has opened, we've had several requests for use. So in the categories of organizations, which includes government, nonprofit groups, strata councils, we've had inquiries for both rentals for meetings, which is what the existing policy covers, and for social events, which is events that are outside the current policy. So 3 of the requests have been related to meetings, and there have been 4 requests for social events from those user groups. In terms of private social events, ranging from birthday celebration, wedding celebration, celebration of life requests, we've had 5 requests so far this year for those activities. And for commercial endeavors, we've also had 5 requests. 2 of those were for social events, and 3 would fall within the existing meeting criteria, but were outside of hours. So those groups that did meet the meeting criteria across the board, but were outside of hours, indicated to us that they would rather wait for the policy to and rentals to open wider than to come to council as one-offs. So originally, when we had brought the policy forward, staff had recommended to council an approach of using a 9 to 9 weekdays, and the 3 to 9 time slot would be as available, which means that we would have staff to be available on call. And then in addition, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. on weekends. So at the time, council wanted to use a phased approach and just authorize the daytime use. So the report in front of you this evening is asking to extend into the evening as we are available, and to still continue on with just the meetings, which would be non-liquor, non-social events. Should council wish to provide any other direction, there are some alternative options in the report, but the recommendation this evening, one additional thing is that the volunteer groups have been identified as groups that would be no charge for use of the village hall. So staff just wanted to affirm the community volunteer groups that we currently have in the books. And again, should council wish to add any other groups that would fit into that criteria or want to amend the criteria at all, staff would be happy to seek direction on that. So the recommended option this evening would be that facility rentals for meetings policy number 78 be amended to include the provision for allowable use on evenings from 3 to 9 p.m. as available, and on weekends from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. as available, and outlined in the amended facility rentals meetings policy 78 attached to the agenda of this evening's meeting, and that community volunteer groups, Anmore Garden Club, Anmore Youth Group under the CC Committee, Anmore Scouts, and Sasamat Volunteer Fire Department be affirmed as approved for the purpose of facility rentals.
So before I put a recommendation to council, there's two things that I just wanted to, three things actually I just wanted to bring up. I think it's important that people realize, yes, there has been a demand for this facility, this amazing facility in the evenings on weekends for events, social events. The problem, there's two folds of a problem right now, is we don't have a facility manager in place, number one, and the second thing is we don't have adequate parking at this time place either. So we're working on the parking and we're working on the facility manager. We have to sort of get a budget in regards, we're coming up to a year, believe it or not, that we're going to actually be able to see the true costs of what this building costs to run and be able to try and do it that way. Hopefully we can make it a bit of a wash in regards to the income that we bring in. We'll pay for the facility manager. So that's my number one. That's just a brief comment. The other questions that I have is that I don't believe the stratas. So there's approximately, I'm going to look at Darren, I think there's 5 stratas in the village. There's Anmore Green Estates, Countryside, Crystal Creek, Canterwood, and then I'm going to say Alpine. So those 5 stratas, all property taxpayers here, homeowners that actually help pay for this facility should be in part of this thing of the non-for-profit community group should have access to this at no charge, depending on, booking a time as a schedule. And they'll be responsible again for their own setup and their own cleanup as everybody else is. And then my last point is with several of the other municipalities, the premium for non-residential usage. I didn't see this in the report, but it may be worthwhile. And again, I'm going to rely a lot on Councillor Cryer because she's so much more well-versed in this. But I believe that as taxpayers, there should be a base price, and then for non-tax-paying residents, there should be a premium. I think it's 10 or 15% that Port Moody charges right now. but I'm not absolutely certain about that number. But those were the things. But I'd like to open it up before we get a resolution on the table, just to make sure that council is comfortable with those stratas being put into that basket of that. Or Ms. Elrod.
Thank you, through the mayor. So currently, in terms of the stratas, they are defined under the organizations. So should council wish to move them into the community volunteer group, that would certainly be direction that staff can take. And then secondly, staff would also seek clarification on whether it's council's intention, should they include strata councils in that group, if it's for just their meetings, such as their AGMs and other strata business, or if it would be for free of charge for events. So say one of the strata, so we would like to seek clarification on that as well. And then should council want us to do some research onto the fees and to amend, we could certainly bring that back.
Yeah, regarding the stratas, it would be just for operating strata business in regards to it. It wouldn't be for events. It would just be for this operation of strata meetings, which again, I believe most of the stratas are all volunteer in itself and stuff like that. So anyway, I'll open up to council. Councillor Cryer.
Thank you. Very happy to see this report in front of us, and thanks for the work that you put into this along with Ms. Perrin. Please pass along our thanks. I like and appreciate the phased approach. We're not ready for big parties with parking and alcohol and having someone on a full-time or part-time person to manage those. I think that if we can start those maybe in the beginning of the year, see how this goes through the holiday season, we'll have a better idea. Parking is definitely a concern. Obviously, I saw in the contract that the elementary school, there's information on how to use that. And, you know, it's the land of Uber. So I think people are very familiar, and it's no longer difficult to get an Uber out here. A couple of questions. There were so many folks that wanted to do yoga and fitness. Has anyone come forward? Because they could have been able to do that.
Through the chair, I believe, I'm just double checking that there was one business, yes, there was one business that has come forward and inquired about applying for a business license, and of course we would require insurance as well, that is interested in yoga classes, but they were just interested in the after hours use, not the daytime use. So they were going to wait and see how things progress this evening and circle back on that.
That's great. And I know there's been a lot of conversation about business licenses, and I just think that's non-negotiable. If you're coming in here, you're charging for whatever it is you're doing, you need to have a business license. Even if it's a break even, that's their call if they want to have a business that's break even. Another question, insurance. I noticed that you have 3 million, which feels low to me. Typically what I've done in the past is 5 million. So that's just a flag for Sabina to look at, Ms. Perrin to look at. Fire code, we covered that. No cooking, that's good. I think that we should be prepared for people to bring in warming boxes and cooling boxes and plate food, which is great, I'm assuming, but no actual cooking, because that's when you have to get Fraser Health to come in and they have to get the special things. So for now, I think that's great. I also appreciate that if someone does want to extend or do something a little bit different, they have the opportunity to come to council and as a delegation, or if they want to extend the hours or maybe serve some alcohol. I think that's a good opportunity to dip our toe in that. And then I did want to comment on the stratas being, their meetings being waived. I respectfully disagree with that for a couple of reasons. I checked a lot of other municipalities and no one else does that. They are corporations and they are not for profits, but that doesn't mean they don't make money. and they are regulated by the BC Financial Services Authority, and although they file taxes, they typically don't pay taxes because of the way they're structured. So I think they should have the organization rate, the discounted rate. I mean, a meeting's going to be a couple of hours, it's $100. I don't see that as being cost prohibitive for them. So that's my 2 cents on the stratas. And then as far as residents versus private users, resident, non-resident, that's kind of hard to manage, I would think, but if that's important to the rest of the group, if you feel that's worth another category, I feel it may complicate things more than it's worth, and there's so many workarounds for that. Someone could just go to a resident and say, will you please, can you get the hall for me, that sort of thing. Other than that, that is all. Thank you for your work on this.
Councillor Richardson.
Okay, so my first question is, when I was reading this, it wasn't clear to me what a meeting was. Like, there's not a definition of meeting. So yes, like if you do yoga and you don't charge and you get together your friends, is that a meeting? Like, because you said non-liquor and non-social. So it becomes social, it's no longer a meeting? Like, it was a bit confusing to me. So whatever the definition is, I think it should be tightened up somehow. With respect to stratas, I'm more with Councillor Cryer. And the reason is I'm going through my head, like I think the mayor's argument was they, as individuals, all pay taxes, and this is their hall, which is true for all residents of Anmore. So say the Candy Cane Lane folks decide that they don't have enough room in their house and they want to come here, should they also be free? Like, when is a collection of residents that want to use this facility free, and when is it not free? Like, if strata's free, like, then why shouldn't any group of residents want to be free? Like, this is where the balance is. So I don't understand where that line would be, right? So I think it's, if you're a volunteer organization like Scouts, okay, fair enough. That's clear and defined. If you're a loose association of people, maybe it's not so defined. If you're an organized strata, which is a legal binding professional organization to some degree, maybe that's outside. Like, I think it should be clear for everybody. That's my concern of these things always. So those are my comments on that.
Councillor Webber.
Yeah, I'm sort of in between. I think just with the list we have of volunteer groups, it would be pretty easy for staff to make the call that if some group, like the Candy Cane Lane people came, they would be able to make the call if this was, okay, we're going to give you this for free. You're a community organization and you're doing good things in the community. On the strata, normally I think I would agree with Councillor Creer, but as we are still a very small village, I think it might be a nice olive branch to extend to our stratas. I mean, we're only talking 5 or 6, to allow them to have their yearly AGM here. As this community grows and we have multiple stratas, then I think it would be onerous on staff. And I think then that would be the time to look at, a fee for any strata meeting. So I think in the short term, I would be okay with it. I agree with Mayor McEwen. Long term, I think we would have to look at that again. But this village, even though it always looks like it's growing quickly, it seems to grow slowly. So I don't think it's going to be a problem for a while. That's my 2 cents.
Councillor Trowbridge.
Yeah, first of all, I have a question. So strata council meetings, I assume, are monthly.
No, they're not. They're yearly. They have to have a yearly AGM.
There's an AGM annually, but
Yeah, I think the monthly ones, do you know much about it? No? Yeah, I think they're online. Yeah, but
yeah.
it's the AG that has to be in person.
Through the chair, I think the AGM is definitely a yearly thing, but I think it depends on the strata council, how often they would meet. I think each strata council meets on a different frequency. So there is that. would be hard to know offhand. And in terms of identifying community volunteer groups to address both Councillor Weberink and Councillor Richardson's points, staff does not envision making that determination. It would be council's determination. So likewise, whether it's the Candy Cane Lane folks or another group of individuals, staff would seek direction on exemptions and inclusion into that no charge group from council. I think that it may become challenging and problematic for staff to determine, based on no criteria or merit, which groups and which individuals within the village would qualify or not.
Yeah, so if it's a single meeting per year for an AGM, I think I'm inclined to say that I'm fine with that. But I agree with Councillor Weberink and Councillor Cryer as well. It is a corporation. It's a strata corporation. They're also residents. They're also everything we are. So I think we could start with that and see what the uptake and usage of the hall is. And I think all of these categories may need to be adjusted over time. So I don't feel that I need to take a hard, definitive, forever stance on any of this, because I would argue that, if someone decided that they had a particular problem on their street, maybe Paul's community I recall them having speed attenuation issues and so on. And if they all wanted to gather in the boardroom and get their heads around that to bring that to council, I would hate to charge them to have that conversation. Well, that goes to Councillor Richardson's point. Who's just using it as a resident and so on and so on. So,
I know that,
were you gonna, sorry.
yeah, I'm going to go first.
Okay.
I think it's, the AGM I think is important because, and again, that's been brought to light as of recent with Countryside. They're now having to go and pay to go to a Port Moody facility to host their meeting. There have been, over the last probably 5 years, some emergency meetings of those two big stratas. AGE, for example, had several of these emergency meetings, especially when we were doing the hookup. They had to do borrowing bylaws they had to pass and stuff like that. So, those were sort of extreme circumstances. And I know Countryside has had the same thing when they had to put a capital plan together as well. But to be able to host those meetings, maybe we limit it to 2 or 3 meetings a year type thing for the bigger stratas, and that I would be fine with that. But if you wanted to just even to do I just think it's better consistency to be able to do it with all the stratas. So anyway, go ahead, Ms. Elrick.
Thank you. I just would like to reiterate, when you mentioned a neighborhood group or another group, and stratas would be included in this, and there was some conversation with a strata group that wanted to come in. The expectation from a staff perspective would be that these groups still have and maintain their own liability insurance. So if we have groups of residents or a strata corporation or whatever type of group, staff would recommend, particularly these groups are meeting out of hours and unsupervised, that it would be a risk and a liability to the village should those insurance requirements be waived.
I agree with that. They should not be waived. And, perhaps there's a hybrid opportunity where with some of the stratas I own, for example, they require a deposit to ensure that the strata meeting leaves the room the way they found the room and, those kinds of things. So I'd be comfortable with any of those caveats added to it.
Councillor Cryer.
Thank you. I totally agree that regardless of if they pay or not, they need to have insurance, and it's very simple. I would expect, say, the garden club, for example, to have some type of insurance when they're going around to property. It doesn't cost them anything to get a certificate of additionally insured, whether it's 3 million or 5 million. Their insurance provider should just whip that up for them in a minute. And then when they renew for my business, when I would renew, it would just be, do you want these same ones? Chamber of Commerce, Village of Anmore, I always had you on there. So I think that's definitely the case. I could see doing the AGM for a strata, but I just think 2 or 3 meetings a year, you're looking at 5 stratas, that's 15 meetings. Those are other opportunities where we could be making money. It would cost staff time to do that. I don't think that's necessary, but if the recommendation would read their AGM specifically. But the strata that we were a part of before we moved here, they had monthly meetings. And they were in person. Granted, now with the pandemic, things have changed a little bit, but those are my 2 cents, 3 cents.
Any other comments? Then I think we should first of all divide the recommendation. So I'm going to ask for division. So I think the first paragraph, it's the second paragraph about including the, is that correct? So if you could help me with this, or maybe Michelle?
So I have the first one as amending policy number 78 to allow use in the evenings from 3 to 9 and weekends 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. as available, and the amended policy is attached.
So could I get someone to move and second the first? This is the first paragraph. Any discussion on the first paragraph? See none? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay. So now if you could reword number 2 and
Okay,
thank
so
you.
there might still be some debate on this, but I have that community volunteer groups, Anmore Garden Club, Anmore Youth Club, Anmore Scouts, and Sasamat Volunteer Fire Department be affirmed as approved for the purpose of facility rentals, as amended to create a new organization type for strata councils to conduct annual general meetings without rental fees.
Yeah, okay. Could I get someone to move that? Moved. Someone to second that? Second. Any discussion? Councillor Cryer.
One question, would it be a new level, or would they just roll right into the community organization one, or will you do a separate strata?
Through the chair, so we could do either, but right now the definition of a community volunteer group is an established group as approved by council that benefits the whole community throughout volunteer work. So it really doesn't capture or fit into that. So we could create a strata organization or a village strata so that it applies just to village stratas.
That seems to make more sense. And then you can be more specific about their yearly annual general meeting.
Councillor Richardson.
Just to clarify, because we talked about their monthly meetings or whatever, it's specifically restricted to now Anmore Strata's annual general meeting. Yes?
Their strata's AGM.
Okay,
Yeah.
AGM, okay.
Okay. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. And I would suggest, if we could, is we should send a letter out to the stratas to make them aware of that. Would be great. Okay, we got through, oh, Ms. Howard.
Sorry, through the mayor, is there any further direction or comment that council would like to provide? You mentioned perhaps an additional category, or is that something that we want to just leave on the table and see how things unfold?
I'm fine leaving it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Or what did you want to? What is that? Oh, this was to do with the upcharge. Premium.
A resident-only fee? Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
we're just leaving that, yeah. Okay.
Can I just make one comment, on that? Overall, we should be doing whatever we can to make this more usable and friendly to the community so it gets used and it actually brings in revenue. I think that's the key that we want from here.
Okay, move on to 11C, Delegation of Development Permits and Minor Variance Permits, report dated September 27th, 2024 from our planner, Mr. Joseph.
Thanks, Mayor. So I'll just be going over the report to council regarding delegation of development permits and minor development variance permits. So a bit of background and some purpose. So recent changes to Part 14, Division 9 of the Local Government Act allows for council to delegate minor development variance permits to an officer or employee of the village. The intent of the delegation is to streamline services and improve service standards, as well as increase capacity for staff to focus more time on other services, such as increased flow of permits, as well as for council to focus on long-term needs of the community. Staff are asking for direction and feedback to delegate minor DVPs, development variance permits, which I'll expand on later, as well as watercourse protection development permits to the Chief Administrative Officer. So bylaw updates. Delegation of permitting powers must be authorized through bylaw, which outlines which decisions council has approved to delegate and to whom, including any terms and conditions. So for the village, this would include amendments to the officer designation and delegation of authority bylaw, as well as the development procedures bylaw to include procedures for accepting and processing minor DVPs. So minor DVPs are similar to development variance permits in what can be varied, but differs in the definition of minor, which requires criteria to be established by council, as well as a set of guidelines that delegates must consider prior to approving a minor DVP. So minor DVPs can vary the sitting, size, or dimension of buildings and structures, parking or loading regulations, sign regulations, and screening or landscaping regulations. So the definition of minor may be different for each regulation. For example, council might consider a 20% increase in sign height as minor, but only a 10% increase in building height as minor. Guidelines must be established by council for staff to consider prior to approving a minor development variance permit. These may include general guidelines to ensure that the minor DVPs do not conflict with the official community plan or result in any impacts to the natural environment or safety risks or hazards. And additional specific guidelines may also be established to address specific impacts, such as shadow impacts on variances to heights. So a delegate's decision is final. However, an applicant may appeal to a delegate's decision to council for reconsideration. The process of a development variance permit application from a complete application to a final decision is lengthy. This is due to the requirements to be presented to council for resolution, or followed by public notice periods, and then a second council meeting for a decision. This typically takes anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks and can be longer. A minor DVP would not go to council and may avoid timelines associated with the current legislative requirements, and council may also choose not to require notice for minor DVPs. So delegating minor DVPs may reduce processing times by around 2 or 4 weeks, depending on whether notice would be required or not. Council can also delegate the authority to issue and amend development permits for areas designated for watercourse protection. So local governments must follow the Riparian Areas Protection Regulation, RAPR Act, which the village enforces by requiring a development permit for any projects within these areas. For a development permit, a qualified environmental professional must submit a RAPR assessment report to both the village and the province. This report outlines necessary setbacks and protections for watercourses. The application must receive provincial approval to ensure it meets the required standards. Finally, staff prepare a report summarizing the application, confirming that all requirements are met before council can decide to approve or deny a development permit. So currently, the province may respond within 1 to 2 months, and it could take an additional 3 to 4 weeks for staff to present the report to council. Delegating a development permit would reduce processing times by 3 to 4 weeks without having to wait for a council meeting. However, development permits would still ensure that provincial approval and RAPR assessment methodology is followed by a qualified environmental professional. So if council chooses to proceed with a bylaw to include watercourse protection development permits as a delegated power, staff may be able to bring forward a draft bylaw for council's consideration. And if council wishes to include minor development variance permits as a delegated power, staff recommend bringing a draft bylaw for council's consideration and to refer the bylaw to committee of the whole for discussions on the definition of minor variances and proposed guidelines a delegate must consider before approving a minor DVP. So direction on the table is that, recommendation on the table is that staff be directed to draft bylaws to amend delegation of authority bylaw number 615, 2020, and development procedures bylaw 553, 2016, to delegate authority to grant development permits and minor development variance permits to the chief administrative officer. Thank you.
So this is a bit of housekeeping, just so you know. You got a little, you dug deep for a bit, but you pulled back. This is generally a housekeeping situation that we're just allocating the authority to our CAO, who then can authorize it to someone else. So could I get someone to move the motion? Move. Seconded. I'll open up for any discussion. Councillor Richardson.
Okay, so I was confused a bit by this. So in my following council previously and on council, I know of only 2 DVPs. One was for that weird lot with the right-of-way, et cetera, in this pool. And then 4 years ago, somebody on Crystal over there wanted to expand a bedroom or something past the form of the house, which was rejected. I know of no others. How often do these things come up? Because I think my gut says we're trying to fix a problem that doesn't exist. This is with DVPs. And my main concern is it's minor DVPs, which have to be defined, which means you have to go through the entire bylaw and say on this thing, like house height, you can be 10%, on lot line, it's 5%, and essentially you redo the whole bylaw to make all the little adjustments. And I think overall you're better off making a bylaw that's fixed and enforced, which is kind of what we do, and not allow all these little changes to it unless it's really, really necessary. And the only place that it came up for me was like in sort of legally non-conforming things that somebody's kind of stuck, and then maybe, but I think I know of one of those in the last 6 years. So to me, there's a bunch of work here that doesn't pay off. So that's my thinking. And with respect to the riparian area ones, I've never seen a riparian area one come to council. And I know people are doing infill and stuff on creeks and carriage houses or coach houses on creeks, which have gone to the province with all the reports, and it's never come to council. So I don't understand why you're saying this will keep it away from council when nothing's come to council. So those are my comments and concerns.
Yeah, through the chair. Yeah, I appreciate feedback there because we don't get a lot of DVPs. However, just kind of envisioning, future workflows in the future with newer developments or comprehensive developments, there may be instances that require development variances, which could be quickly addressed with a minor development variance permits, depending on what's considered minor, such as a 1 meter difference in a setback, potentially to take 6 to 8 weeks to go to council for a decision. So it's again up to council's discretion on what's considered minor and whether they feel it's appropriate to pursue. With increased flows, I think it's appropriate just to streamline these things as we get more workflow through the village. In terms of DPs, there is a bit of ambiguity in regards to our development permit application, our bylaws, and how that relates to bringing to council. There's also other powers through Local Government Act and Community Charter, which gives power to communities to require development permit implementation of riparian protection through alternative means, such as requiring a QEP to provide a report that goes to the province regardless, but doesn't end to council. So we do have in our bylaws, a development permit as outlined for a development permit area, and that is required through the Local Government Act to go through council for approval. And so by approving development permits as a delegated authority, staff can just continue to issue development permits without bringing it to council. It's a bit...
You lost me a bit on
Yeah.
the last one because they don't come to council now, but you're saying they do now have to come to council?
Yeah, so typically as the bylaws read, they should come to council. Yeah, there is ambiguity, however, in the Local Government Act and Community Charter, which allows alternate means of ensuring riparian protection.
So I'm okay with the DP part. I'm not okay with the DV part, especially for future developments. because there'll be a whole bunch of work defining the neighborhood plan. And like you say, a meter on a setback, the setbacks are probably only going to be 2 meters anyway. So that's 50%. And if it's a new development all defined, I'm reluctant to start shifting things around. I think that plays into the hand of the developers somewhat if they think they can go down that path. And I think the bylaw should be set solid, and only in rare instances, like specifically legally non-conforming, should it go back to have a DVP.
If I could just quickly,
Yeah.
to the chair. Just to note that there is a difference between the zoning bylaws and then the delegation of authority bylaw, which would outline the minor as a definition, which includes those specifics. Sorry. There is a difference between the zoning bylaws, which would not be altered, versus the delegation bylaw, which would give amendments to include minor development variance permit as a definition, and these might then entail what is required measures in the definition section.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
my problem is, in order to get minor well-defined, which has to be specifically defined, you have to go through pretty much every line item in all those bylaws.
If you want to define every single
Yeah.
one. Otherwise, you can categorize what you would like to see as a minor as well.
Yeah, and then it's all fuzzy, and this is where I don't like fuzzy. Like, I don't think residents like fuzzy. I don't think residents like it when one person gets one thing and somebody else gets something else. So I think it should be absolute. That's what the whole point of bylaws is, governing through bylaws and only bylaws.
Ms. Elrick?
Through the chair, council and should council provide direction to bring forward a bylaw? There are models in other communities that staff would model the bylaw after, and council could choose to include or exclude certain powers and how far they want to go along that spectrum in terms of what staff would be able to approve without bringing to council, and what staff would be able to have delegated to them to approve. So there would be a wide spectrum available to council to make a decision on. And additionally, there would be a variety of different items that council could say, no, we think that we want to keep this under our purview, or yes, this is something that we see would be beneficial to put under staff's purview. So just to provide that clarification.
So, you know, what is being asked here is to draft or something for council to come forward. I too, like Councillor Richardson, want to have a set playbook that's going to be adhered by all. And I will tell you that the DVP is a very powerful tool that this council has in regards to development progressing at a certain state. So we have control, not the developers have control. I can tell you that in this community, we've had a situation where we didn't have that, which was Pinnacle Phase 1, and it took out several houses because certain pieces of the development weren't done in a timely manner, i.e. the drainage, and then it blew out and we had that big issue. So DVPs are a very powerful tool, and I think they're a powerful tool that have to be run through a council. I would be reluctant to give that authority just to the approving officer or staff, because again, when things go bad, we're the ones that have to take it. So I'm fine with, I'll vote in favor of preparing a report, but I'd just like that to be on the record, that I have very big reservations about giving that authority away in regards, because I do think that's very much a council perspective. Councillor Trowbridge.
Yeah, I'll be brief because I think it's been said, but when I read it over a couple of times, I found it a bit vague and nebulous as well. The word minor, what does that actually mean? Minor to someone is major to someone else. I just didn't think there was enough clarity or defining language within it. So like the mayor said, I'll vote for the report to come, but if it is as loose as it is now, I think we're getting into the kind of ground that will make the bylaws gray. And what that means is if we, and I think, Josh, you said, it could, or maybe I read it, that you could apply percentages, so you could define minor and so on. I think that was in here. You apply percentages, you might as well make that the rule, because anyone wanting to stretch it will stay within the percentage variance, and that'll be the new bylaw. So I'll see the report, but I like things to be clear when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Okay, so, sorry, Councillor Weber.
Just for clarity, I'm taking it this is kind of a best practices thing that you're recommending. I like Ms. Elrick's comments about, kind of defining what would be minor and what wouldn't be. So, I do hear lots of complaints from people that are, they're held up on little things that take a long time because maybe they have to come to council. And to Councillor Richardson's point, that doesn't happen very often, but with Bill C-44 and all these basement suites that could be going, we don't know what's going to happen with carriage houses and all the development. This could become an issue. So I think it's diligent to do our due diligence on this and get it right. So I like that recommendation. So same as everyone else, I think I'll vote to move it forward. But the devil will be in the details.
Oh, Councillor Cryer.
Apologies. Quick question. Are there other municipalities that have loosened this up? Do you have specific municipalities to refer to?
Through the chair, I can say that this is almost a standard now in municipalities. So most municipalities actually have delegated authority for minor development variance permits to streamline applications that are considered minor. And again, however that can be defined, whether it's percentages, maximum amounts, that's up for council discretion, which is why it's vague at this report. This is just to seek a resolution to bring forward something to work on. But we could bring, we will bring examples of other municipalities as well as what they are implementing, and that kind of sets the precedent of what is considered minor, as a domino effect for other municipalities.
So they're a little more defined. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so could I get someone to the recommendation, which is on page 27? Could I get someone to move that recommendation? Moved, seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Richardson is opposed. Motion carries. Now move on to advanced 11D, advanced voting opportunity costs. Report dated September 27th from our Manager of Corporate Services. Michelle.
Thank you, Your Worship. Legislation outlines very strict rules and procedures for local general elections. Municipalities like ours with a population of 5,000 or less must provide 2 voting opportunities. So general voting day must occur on the 3rd Saturday in October every 4 years, and then the advanced, the other one that's required, is 10 days earlier. In addition to these 2 legislatively required in-person opportunities, Anmore offers a optional mail ballot opportunity. If council would like to further promote the mail ballot opportunity, they could extend additional times for pickup and drop off of the packages, or designate a drop-in area as an option, but these would be outside of regular office hours because there's already staff that are available to do that during the week. The incremental costs would primarily include staff and contractor fees. And if council would like to add an additional advanced voting opportunity, it is provided for in the legislation as long as we add that to our bylaw. And additional fees would, again, primarily be staff time. The thing to remember is that timing is critical. So if council did wish to add an additional in-person voting opportunity, staff recommends that it be between the 10 days of the first advance and the general voting opportunity, because timing is very critical to get the ballots created, and that's due to restrictions in the legislation where we have to wait for the nomination period to close and for the opportunity for candidates to withdraw to end before we can approve the ballots for printing and delivery and then testing. So the recommendation, well, I just want to cover financial implications as well. So approximately a third of the election budget is dedicated to staff and contractor costs right now. The overall budget is $30,000. So about 9,000 is dedicated to staff time. And keep in mind that future election costs are already expected to increase due to inflation. The cost of voting machines has significantly gone up, and contracting a chief election officer is what we would ideally like to do. So the recommendation is that this report be received for information.
Good. I'll start off with a few comments. Yeah, as was described, it is very challenging. So I know Rhonda, or Ms. Elric, you and I have gone through this. So you've got up until, what is the date before you can actually take the ballots before you can print them?
So through the chair, once the nomination period ends, then there's a period after the nomination period ends in which candidates can withdraw. So the ballots cannot be printed until that date. And then after the ballots are printed and received, which
Takes about a week, doesn't it?
yeah, I think Ms. Schell has the dates there. So after that date, they do need to be tested on the machines for logic and accuracy. So I think Michelle has the timeline there.
The exact dates in 2022, the close of nomination period was September 9th, and the last day for candidate withdrawal was September 16th, and so it's on that date when we can verify the names that will go on the ballot. Then we have to wait for the proof to come back, then we approve that, and then it gets printed and shipped. The required advanced voting opportunity was on October 5th, so that gave about just a little over 2.5 weeks to get the ballots in, printed, delivered, tested, and then start preparing the mail ballot packages.
Yeah, I know I missed a lot of people were like, how do I get the ballots out and get them back in time? Like it was, but I guess there's just nothing you can do time-wise, is there? Like we kind of talked about. However, you know, this election, first of all, we want to promote as much engagement in the community. We want as many votes as we can get in the community. Like that's, you know, and that's one thing that Anmore has always done very, very well. You know, we're upwards of 50, 60% of the community is actually engaged in. Also now, we have a facility to be able to host the vote. Again, I remember, you know, it used to be at the school. I remember one election was at the old Mont Murray House. But anyway, it's important. So I'm a big believer that, you know, you don't want to spare any expense. You want to give as much opportunity. I would like to follow the lead of Port Moody, where you can come during the day and either do a mail-in ballot, or you can literally there'll be a polling station set up, I would imagine probably in the boardroom or something like that, so people can vote, because it's tough on those 2 days, especially with the amount of time people are traveling and that. So I would personally like to open up and get as many people to vote as possible. So I'll open it up to council. This report is just for receipt, but I'm wondering if we could, you know, leave it up. So I'll open it up to Councillor Richardson's wants to say something.
Okay, I'm with the mayor. I want everybody to have a chance to vote, but like in the past, I always want to know how many people use it. So when we have voting, how many come on the day, how many use early voting? Because like the expense comes to a point. If we're spending $2,000 to get one more vote, I don't know if that's worth it. Maybe worth it to that one person, but you know, how many opportunities do you have to give it, and what return do you get? So I'd have some concerns there. If it's, you know, $50 and we have a machine in the boardroom for 2 weeks, okay, fine. If it's $10,000 for that, you know, it matters to some degree.
I can tell you, I recall the numbers. It was about 100 people came out to the early vote, or Michelle, do you have that? Oh, you have that? Oh, okay.
So there were 1,782 eligible voters. 878 turned out, which turned out to be just over 49%. The average is 20%, or 29%. So we did very well compared to...
Also, it was only a mayor race, which again is a lot lower than what we would normally have with a full council.
Right.
Yeah.
So there was 302 on advanced voting day, 539 on general voting day, and 37 mail ballots. And I anticipated, because you have to have 3 people at an advanced opportunity, it has to be the chief or the presiding election officer and 2 other election officials. I estimate about $1,500 per day on a 12-hour day would be allocated to that.
It's,
Is that open for 2 weeks, or is that, we just did one more a day?
Ms. Albright.
Sorry, through the mayor, if I can just provide some clarification. I think that generally the term mail ballot is perceived by some to mean just what it is called, is a mail ballot. However, the mail ballot does give an opportunity, and that was provided at the last election, and can again be provided without an additional polling station. Persons can still come who are eligible to vote, request a mail ballot, take that mail ballot, whether we, have a place set up for them that's private, or they want to take it home or to their car, and then physically bring it back. That is an opportunity that is provided and can be provided through mail ballot. So setting up an additional, having the machines in a polling station, like you were referencing, each polling station needs to be set up for a finite amount of time, be staffed, and be counted separately as X day polling station. This number of ballots were received. This is the breakdown. So it is quite prescriptive in that way, whereas the mail ballot does provide some flexibility. And currently our current bylaw includes flexibility for the chief election officer to set the criteria and determine how the mail ballot is used. So staff could certainly take direction on providing as broad of a spectrum as possible under the mail ballot criteria without an additional polling station. But certainly if council wants to provide direction for an additional polling station, I just want to make sure that you understand that it is not a open ballot box per se. It's a finite date, time, staff activity, whereas the mail ballot doesn't need to be mail.
Anybody else?
So on that note, I didn't know you could do that with mail-in ballots. That seems to answer all the issues. Like fundamentally, set up correctly, somebody can vote any day. Right?
Through the chair, that's correct. As soon as the mail ballots are available, that opportunity is available to any eligible voters.
So I will tell you that and Kim and I, it was brought to our attention, there were some people that weren't allowed to do that process that you're just talking about. Were actually turned away. Yeah, on the last election. Anyway, I'm just saying that. Yeah.
Well, through the mayor, I was the chief election officer of the last local government election here, and I did not have any individuals who inquired with me and were not offered that opportunity. So I'm not sure if there was a miscommunication or what happened, but there may have been a few that wanted them actually mailed and the mail wasn't going to reach there and back in time. That may have been the case, but I certainly did not turn any voters down.
I think if it functions as described, it'll be good.
I just wonder if, we do now have the facility, if we should open it up for, maybe the entirety of a week before the election for people to come in at their leisure. I just, that's what I think Port Moody does, I believe, and other municipalities do. Granted, they have more staff and that, but any opportunity to get more people in voting, I think is key. I would also extend, we need more candidates as well, so. but that's a different topic.
Just for a point of clarification, I think what you said earlier, it's $1,500 a day. So that week would be $10,500. Okay.
Yeah, through the chair, that is correct. But also currently, as Ms. Ulrich stated, people can come in anytime during the 10 days before, or as soon as the mail ballots are available, and pick up or drop off a mail ballot right up until 8:00 p.m. on general voting day.
Yeah, they have to drop it off before 8 o'clock on voting day. Yeah,
They can drop it off anytime at the office during regular business hours, or on either the advanced or regular up until 8 p.m.
Councillor Crowd.
So you're saying they technically can do what Councillor Richardson is talking about, which is kind of how I understood it. They can come in any day, get a ballot, a mail-in ballot, fill it out right there, and hand it back to you. So they're essentially voting, but it's just not the polling day.
Do they have to pick up for themselves, or can they pick up for others?
Through the chair, that criteria is set by the chief election officer. For the last election, we had the criteria set that a member of the household could come pick up. You could designate somebody. Not last election, but the election previous, there was some allegations of mail ballot fraud within Metro Vancouver. So most municipalities took extra measures to mitigate that. You could appoint somebody in your household, or that you could appoint a person, but somebody couldn't walk in with a dozen appointments and say, all of these people appointed me to pick up the mail ballots. So we did set that criteria, and that is, open for consideration again when the next election comes up.
Councillor Weber.
Yeah, just so for clarity, when somebody picks up a mail ballot, their name is ticked off on the voters list that they've got their ballot, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, so essentially this mail-in ballot process would completely, we wouldn't need to have a poll here for a week at a cost of $1,500 a day, because the mail-in ballot's going to accomplish the same thing. Is that correct, through the chair?
Through the chair, unless council wants to appoint an additional day where people would vote as they would on general voting day or advanced voting day, but the opportunity still would exist to vote otherwise through a mail ballot.
I do think there was some confusion with the mail-in ballots the last election and that, but as Councillor Trowbridge said, if it works exactly the way it's set out, it's perfect. But I know that I had some people complaining to me that they weren't eligible or had an issue with it. So I think as well that we need to, like I said, I think the ultimate goal is just to make sure there's an ability for people to vote. It's their democratic right. And I think that maybe what we need to do is describe the mail-in ballot process better, that it's not strictly a mail-in ballot process. It can be that if you're not available process or a convenient process, come in, pick up your ballot for convenience, and then drop it off. Ms. Schnell.
I think also another factor contributing to that was it was during COVID and the mail ballot rules had changed. So there was, everybody was kind of updating their procedures, and it wasn't broadly understood or advertised anywhere.
Okay.
But that would be cleared up.
Okay. Councillor Trowbridge, no?
Sorry, one quick question. For the mail-in ballots, just procedurally, do I have to register to get a mail-in ballot? Or can I literally come in, decide I'm coming in tomorrow, and say, can I have my mail-in ballot, fill it out, and give it back? Or is it something I have to pre-arrange?
I'll let Ms. Ulrich comment on that.
Thank you, through the chair. I think it would be dependent, and by dependent, I mean on staff resources. The last local government election, we tried to seek out and hire an independent contractor, and we were unsuccessful in doing so. That may have been related to COVID because we couldn't get a contractor. So I was the chief election officer. We then tried to recruit a deputy chief election officer from outside the organization, and were unsuccessful in doing that as well, as were many other communities. So thankfully, Ms. Perrin stepped in and was my deputy chief election officer. So at that point, we would have wanted people to let us know ahead of time that they were coming so that we could be ready. There, was two of us, and we were juggling our other duties at the same time. But in a better world where we're able to get more consultant or outsource that, then certainly it would be more readily available. I did last time, meet some people after hours and on weekends and whatnot as they were available. So,
Good, okay. So the motion is just to be received for information. So move receipt of the report, and I think we've had a good discussion in regards to communication needs to be improved on the mail-in ballots. It could be called a convenience ballot, for example, rather than just a mail-in ballot. And I think that it's going to facilitate the fact that a savings of it was $1,500 a day, so times 5 days, that's what, $7,500 is a significant savings. So good. Okay. Well, could I move receipt of the report? Someone to move that? Move. Second. Any further discussion? See none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Michelle. We'll now move on to items from committee in the whole at a September 5th, 2024 committee of the whole meeting. Recommendations were September 5th. Recommendations were made to amend the zoning bylaw number 568-2017. That should be September 25th, 2024. So a little typo there. I'm going to refer to Michelle.
So as you mentioned, this is regarding recommendations that were made at the September 25th Committee of the Whole meeting. The draft minutes are attached under item 16A. The recommendation is to endorse the recommendations as written in that draft.
Yeah, and I think council, again, the function of the Committee of the Whole meeting was very much very high level. Different scenarios played out. These are open to the public, but it gave council an opportunity as a workshop to work through a lot of these scenarios. And what was even better was, even since we had the Committee of the Whole, council has put forth further emails saying, well, I think about this differently now. So again, this is just simply to endorse what happened that night. There will be an opportunity coming forward when a bylaw is drafted to debate the entirety of the bylaw on two separate nights. That, again, debate will be able to happen on both of those nights, but this offered an opportunity, and I like to use the quote, no dumb questions, so to speak. And it was interesting because some of it was very technical about basement levels. It was about Bill 44 and its new implication on that. So it was really good. Again, we've had 6 opportunities already to discuss this thing. And I think this was a very, very productive meeting. We didn't really have anybody in attendance, but again, I know there's been some concern about public input. Public has had plenty of time to be inputted on this, and will when we get to something more formalized. This again was in essence a council workshop. Previous to 2020, we didn't even call them that. We just called a workshop. And so, we're being transparent, and that's where we're evolving to. So with that recommendation, could I get someone to move the recommendation of what's there? Move. And seconded, I think, Councillor Richardson, you just had a clerical issue on one thing.
Yeah, I have one, because I don't think it reflects what we agreed to or discussed. So section 9.1.3 in the table, it has a principal building 1, an accessory building 1, and a coach house 1. It doesn't have the ability to have 2 accessory buildings and not a coach house. And 9.1.3D says the maximum number of buildings not to exceed 3, which is what we agreed to, and it could be 3, which would be a principal building and 2 accessory buildings, or 3, a principal building, a coach house, and an accessory building. It wasn't required that one of the 3 buildings was a coach house, which is what this currently says. So,
Just to make note of that when the bylaw is drafted. I think there'll be, I think the first draft of the bylaw will have several changes on it anyway, but, and that. So with that notice, could I get someone to, so it's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion on that? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Mayor's report, moving along. A few things. I just wanted to ask, Ms. Elrick, you weren't here last council meeting, but I asked Michelle, can we please get somebody to follow up with TELUS Mobility and Rogers about the cell service in this community? It is just horrible right now. I am dropping calls all day long. I used to be able to walk around, so please, if we can get some sort of correspondence out to them asking what's going on. I have phoned them directly, and they said, we need to hear from more residents. So now I'm hoping from a council saying, please, let's get this, something has changed dramatically. I just wanted to talk,
Sorry, was that TELUS and Rogers that you wanted
well,
us to
I think we should do both.
Okay.
I can see the TELUS tower up on the hill right
Yeah.
there, so, and it used to be so phenomenal, the service, so something has changed. Just wanted to talk about, I'll tell you, what a great night for the Scouts on September 3rd, the adult bingo. I think there was myself and Councillor Richardson was there, about 100 people. It was a really fun night. A lot of members from the community. Mr. Smurthwaite was there and actually donated some prizes, and I know the Scouts were very, very appreciative in that, but they raised a bunch of money. It was a really fun night to get the community out, and that saw a lot of people, and I think I actually got called up to participate in the heads and tails games and that, so it was it, and I know they want to do another one. It was really well done, and that it was great to see the positiveness with the facility and that. So like I said, it was really, really, really well done. September 14th, I going to say attended and helped host the Council of Council. I think most all the council was there in regards, and that was in POCO, discussion about the North Shore wastewater treatment overages, and that we had a wholesome discussion, probably took up about, well, the whole meeting, and that it was great to air a lot of that stuff out, to be able to answer any question from council, especially a lot of the councillors from the North Shore who are taking some heat on this in regards to where it's at. I will say, though, about 70% of those costs and the overages will be paid by the region. It's just the 30% that's having a pretty significant effect on the North Shore. I also, when I talk to certain councillors about the North Shore and what they're paying disproportionately to the rest of the region, I bring up our water rates, which are disproportionately charged compared to the other region, even though we're a member of the Metro Vancouver Water District and all other municipalities are getting water at a wholesale rate. We're not. So I say that there is some inequalities out there that need to be fixed. Attended UBCM on September 16th to the 19th. Luckily, we were able to get an impromptu meeting. Councillor Weberink and Cryer and Ms. Elrick, we were able to meet with BC Hydro, and that was about the grant. The Saskatchewan Volunteer Fire Department gets a grant from, or has gotten a grant from BC Hydro in the past for coverage of Bunsen Lake during the summer months, because they attend a lot of calls there, and it was really good that they didn't deny it. They just simply said it might have gone to a different arm with new people being there, so they were going to look into it. So we're going to follow up with them. And then Councillor Weberink and myself, we got a tour of the TMX facility by water, just down across the water here, which was interesting to see, and that it's quite a facility. We just mentioned that the Committee of the Whole meeting, which I thought was a real productive information, hoping to do some more of them. Very, like I said, it's a roll up your sleeves, general discussions, scenarios, but again, it's really important. No decisions are being made there. All it is we're just trying to exhaust things and give direction to staff to be able to prepare bylaws to come here for open debate and discussion. And then I guess it was Thursday, I had the Mayor's Barbecue, which Councillor Cryer attended, and wasn't as much banter in that, but all the mayors, Mayor West wasn't there, Councillor Petro was there, and that. But we had some discussion about homelessness in the Tri-Cities, discussion about Bill 44, the implications on the communities. Nothing really too much about anything Anmore Pacific whatsoever, but yeah, it was good. There was good discussion from all councils. So that's all I have. Open up for councilors' report. Councillor Cryer.
Thank you, Mayor McEwen. Yes, as Mayor McEwen mentioned, UBCM, where we went with Fortis, or I'm sorry, we met with Hydro,
Yeah.
but there are some grant opportunities with Fortis that we'll be looking into. I had a Foundry meeting. They're very close to having a location, which is great news. Committee of the Whole was fabulous. Really a perfect opportunity to just sit, ask all the questions, get some clarity on things. It helps us to know what we're doing, and it also really, I think, was beneficial for staff to get the bylaw written and have it go through a little bit faster. But it really shares some good knowledge, so I'm hopeful that we can do that more often. Council of Councils, I found that very beneficial. I mean, they really got into what's going on with the wastewater treatment, so that was, I thought, very interesting. I have a CC committee on Thursday. I have a prayer breakfast on Saturday, and I was at the Mayor's Barbecue for an hour or so, and then went to the Rotary 25th anniversary party. So I didn't hear everything, but I got an update, and I guess the conversation was good, and I was told that my mayor did very well. Congratulations.
Thanks.
That's it.
Any other? Councillor Weber.
Yeah, I don't need to repeat all of what's been said. I did find, the UBCM very fruitful this year. I did, even though we didn't get our official meeting with the transport minister, I did get an unofficial meeting thanks to an introduction by Mayor McEwen. Mayor McEwen literally knows everybody. So that was helpful. Had a great discussion. Unfortunately, we have these minister meetings on the eve of an election, and they may not mean much. We may be changing our government. But Minister Fleming was very attentive. I cornered him for, Councillor Cryer was there too. And we had a good talk with him. And I just expressed my concern. I mean, obviously, how all this affects Anmore was when Port Moody removed our future third potential for a road. And my concern was, if you look at our region, I mean, all of Metro Van from a bird's eye view, you can't tell where Burnaby starts and Coquitlam stops. I gave them examples in the past where communities have built a 4-lane road and the community that connect to go, well, we're just going to keep the connection a 2-lane road. So there needs to be a regional strategy anticipating future growth. Anmore is going to grow. Even if we say no to some of these large developments, Anmore is going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to be a safety concern. And I felt there needs to be a regional transportation plan similar to a regional sewer, a regional water system. TransLink looks at SkyTrain to all communities. He didn't disagree with me. He didn't understand the mechanics of it and how that would look, but the discussion, I wanted to just start the discussion. He's not the first minister I've talked to this about. I have talked to other ministers in the NDP, and I just hope that this will continue, or this be the start of a continued conversation leading to this sort of consideration in the future. And that's about it.
Good. Okay. Chief Administrator Officer's report. Ms. Elrick.
Thank you. Just wanted to remind everybody that we are well into back to school season, and also it's getting dark earlier and staying dark in the morning. So please be mindful in our community and other communities that you're traveling through during your commute, that you're slowing down during school zones and watching for children during school hours. Additionally, wanted to I know that Ms. Shell gave a website update at the last meeting, but in addition to that, we do have our new email notification up and running, and it's a much more user-friendly platform than our mass Outlook list that we were using. So please, if you are not signed up, contact the village to get signed up. There's lots of good information that comes out through the email notification. And if for some reason you're not getting email notifications and you were, and we may have missed you in the transfer, please make sure you contact us to make sure that you are getting those updates. Thank you.
Good. We've got a few information items, some board minutes. I'll now open it up to public question period. Before I do that, has the sound been better tonight? Okay. Okay. Otherwise, though, we're getting there. Thank you. Okay, public question period.
Can you hear me? Yes, all is good. Nancy Maloney, 1724 East Road, and I actually have 3 questions. Mayor McEwen, another member of the Public Safety Committee, has requested that I ask why meetings are being canceled for this committee and other committees, and why committee members and other residents cannot contribute agenda items which reflect areas of citizen concern within the mandate of these committees. So 2 parts.
I'm going to pass it on to Ms. Shell. I have no idea.
Yeah, through the chair, select committee meetings are appointed by council, and they have adopted.
Sorry, having trouble hearing?
Sorry. Select committees are appointed by council, and they have approved a terms of reference that outline the mandate of the committees. So when items are referred to them by council, that's when the committees will meet to discuss it. And the committees are an advisory body as defined in the community charter. So they advise council on items that have been referred to them.
Good.
So am I
Next
correct
question.
that it's the responsibility of council then to permit meetings to proceed or to not proceed by being canceled? Council determines.
I think Michelle's just already answered that. So could you go into your next question, please?
Did I understand correctly?
Yeah, you did understand
Okay.
that. And meetings have only been canceled when there's a lack of agenda items. Council has not canceled any committee meetings.
And your next question?
Okay, related to public safety, since we don't have meetings, but is there easy access to naloxone, especially nasal spray, during community events, both here in the hub and in Spirit Park, given the possible delayed emergency response time during which an overdose victim could die or become brain damaged? So do we have naloxone spray available?
I would say that you should probably focus that question to Chief Sharp, but Ms. Elrick, do you know anything?
Yes, through the chair, no, we don't have a naloxone here, nor do we have staff that's trained at all.
Yeah. Oh,
As far as Mom Murray Day, they did have a tent, the Tri-Cities Overdose Cat, so they were on site with naloxone kits and nasal spray. But again, I don't think that's a regular occurrence. And I don't know that that is something that is available to just anyone. There is some training that goes along with it, so they're very, in the past, unless something has changed, they're very hesitant to just give people kits because they could use them incorrectly. I don't know enough about it, but I know that there have been issues with that when people phone in and want some kits.
and your third
Yes.
question?
Sorry, I know that Port Moody has various emergency response equipment available in their facilities, including, I think, even defibrillators should.
We have a AED out in the.
Oh, we do have that.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, very
yeah,
good.
yeah.
But yeah, I would.
And we're not Port Moody,
I know we're not Port Moody. Yes, I live here.
just making you aware.
Yes, but I would like for that to be considered, the advisability of having naloxone nasal spray available, given that events will be happening here. And lastly, is it at all possible for council to consider contributing the use of the hub for the cold weather homelessness shelter program, which I know Polly is our representative to the Tri-City Homelessness Task Group, and I get
don't
emails. So Port Moody has had to withdraw the use of Kyle Center for various reasons. So a call had gone out for other communities to come forward and participate in the cold weather program. And I wondered, we have so much room in the hub. Could the hub be used for such a purpose?
Councillor Craig.
Thank you for the question. EWR, the Emergency Weather Response Center, was at Kyle Center, and that you need to have the space available from October 1st to April 15th or 30th every night. Although there's not a shelter every night, it opens in response to a predetermined set of weather parameters, temperature, high winds, rainfall, snow. So that was what Kyle Center was, and they ceased all programming. So it's too late to get that started this year. And then the cold wet weather MAT program
That's what I'm thinking.
is called it is now the winter shelter, and that is a nightly shelter that rotates. And we are, at this time, we're set for December, January, February, and March. So we are good for that for this year. We could have opened in November, but staffing was a little bit difficult. So we won't be opening on November 1st.
Okay, thank you.
But it's a good suggestion.
Okay,
Thanks.
Any other?
thank you.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Through the chair, I'd like to ask if we in Anmore, like those coping with Hurricane Helene in the Appalachian Mountains of North Carolina, if we're setting ourselves up for disaster. As we know, tree roots have long been recognized as slope stabilizers. If you remove the trees, you remove the tree roots, which means slopes will fail. What will happen to the Pinnacle Ridge development when we in Anmore are subjected to maybe an atmospheric river or two? They're not very uncommon these days. Have you seen the impact of Hurricane Helene? And may I please read a paragraph from the Atlantic Magazine's assessment of what happened in North Carolina, so the scale of possible disaster here in Anmore is on official record. May I go ahead? Just a short paragraph.
Sure.
Quote, when Helene swept through western North Carolina late last week, the rain fell heavy and fast enough to start washing away mountainsides. Rivers overflowed, and a chunk of one of the state's major highways collapsed, cutting off communities. Floods slung mud and muck into buildings, cars, trucks, dumpsters, entire homes and bridges. These and more were carried away in the floods as if they weighed nothing. Much of what managed to stay in place became submerged in brown water, end quote. So my final question is, how confident is council in an era of serious climate change that the engineers behind the Pinnacle proposal will get things right? Thank you.
Well, we have just simply had a proposal put in front of us. We haven't even done any of the engineering, but those are all things that will be looked at. So I thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn. Move second. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, everyone. And I also heard I got a text saying that the sound online was amazing too. So that's a win-win. Thank you.